Hi, I'm Brian Sapp, the creator of Going Local. With Going Local, it was my goal to be able to take you out to events and be able to see the great things that are happening in your community and know and realize that you don't have to travel that far to be able to have adventures and meet people. In these stories, I've met a lot of people I'd really love to talk and spend some more time with. And with that, I decided to create this new podcast called The People in Your Neighborhood. And this is my opportunity to have people here or wherever we may be to sit down and talk and just find out some more about the people that are in the community around you. We're at Goshen High School because today we're going to talk to Zoe Eichorn, who's the student advisor who represents the students here at Goshen High School on the Goshen City Council. And we're going to meet Zoe and find out what she has learned in this new position. Zoe, thanks for joining us for the first episode. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm going to be a senior at Goshen High School next year. I've gone to Goshen Community Schools all my life. I went to Chandler for elementary school, and then I was at the middle school.
What are some of the things that you're involved in here at the high school?
At the high school, so I've been competitively swimming since 4th grade.
Oh, cool.
So I've been in GSI club, and I've also swam the high school team and middle school team. And so this year, probably like my 10th year swimming-ish, kind of.
All right.
And then I'm also in student council. I did Key Club for a little bit, and then that got too much, so I was like, I'm done with that. And then I'm in NHS and the Youth Caucus, and I'm the City Council Youth Advisor.
What have you been involved in maybe outside of school? Like, have you?
Outside of school, I'm in my church youth group. I go to Silverwood Mennonite Church, and so I go there pretty much every Wednesday evening, and we do a lot of cool stuff. Like, I just got back from convention. We were in Kansas City for the Mennonite convention, so that was pretty fun.
You said you're now on a student advisory council, and then now you're the student advisor for the high school with the city council. How did that all come about?
Well, okay, so I think it started, the first one was my freshman year. So I didn't get to vote for that one, but I had heard about it. And then going into my sophomore year, my best friend was running, and I was like, that seems really cool. And I was like, I've always been really into politics and stuff. And so I was like, that sounds right up my alley. And since like middle school, I wanted to be like a lawyer. And so I was like, man, that sounds like really good experience. It's something that could be really fun. And so I was like, I'm going to run for that. And so I did end up running for it. I was really nervous. I was like, oh no, I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to run. What's the point? And then I decided, I was like, okay, worst that's going to happen is I don't get it. So I was like, well, just run. And then it turns out my like best friends were running against me. And I was like, great.
Well.
This is a fun time. But yeah, so I just decided, I was like, okay, let's do it. And so I ran.
And then, so a little bit about the position. It's, can any grade do it, or to be the representative on the city council, you got to be a senior?
Yeah, so I think Mayor Stutzman, he set it up so that end of your junior year, you can start running for it in May, and then we'll vote at the end of May, and then you'll be in the position. I started June 4th, that's when I was sworn in, up until about the same time the next year, when the next youth advisor is sworn in.
Okay.
So, just your senior year.
So what was it like being sworn in and getting on the council, and have you gone to any meetings yet?
Yeah, so I've gone to 2 different meetings. The first meeting I was sworn in, so it was kind of weird because Felix Presdiner, he was up there before me for like 2 minutes when they did roll call. And then they're like, okay, now we're swearing in Zoe Eichorn. And I was like, and then Felix just like left. And then I went up there and I had to do the oath and like raise my right arm and all that official stuff. Yeah, all official stuff, and I was just like very nervous the entire time that I was gonna mess up in front of everybody. And then they had my own little like, what's it called? Name. Oh, cool. So place thing on my seat. Then I sat down, and then our first meeting was almost 4 hours.
Oh wow.
Which was highly unusual.
Oh, okay.
They start about 7, and normally they're like an hour and a half. So that was a great start.
That is a long time. And then, so was that 4-hour one your first meeting then?
That was my first meeting. And so then my second meeting, so they're twice a month, every other Tuesday. And so then the second meeting was 45 minutes. So I was like, oh, that was refreshing. Okay. That was really nice.
Let's talk a little bit about your role and how it works. Okay. Let's go back to the advisory council, because you were telling me a little bit that that's a group of students that meet here at the school, and then you are kind of the bridge between the city and that. What's this advisory council? What do you guys do there?
It was set up by Jason Barahona and Jeremy Stutzman.
And Jason is a previous
he
advisor,
was the second
right?
youth advisor.
Okay.
So it's Youth Caucus and we kind of just discuss different issues that we see in the community or ways that we feel like we can add to Goshen as a city. And so this past year we decided that we were going to try and pass an environmental resolution for Goshen, and it's not very binding, but it's just a statement that Goshen will work towards being more environmentally friendly and work towards carbon neutrality by a certain date. So
Okay. I think no matter where you are, everybody loves the environment. They like
hope so.
getting out in it. Yeah. So you say it's not binding, but one of the things I noticed, and I think that's one of the reasons why it kind of intrigued me about talking to you, is I know the school bragged a lot about it, just because I think it shows students doing something. But I think also you guys took your idealism and did something with it. And so I thought that was really cool. I mean, how did that feel? Even though it's not binding, I think it still made a statement to people.
Really refreshing. They kind of reiterated a lot during the meeting that the city council and the community that this is the first time in Goshen's history that the youth led something that was passed in the city. So I felt like that was really cool. It was a lot of work. It took all year. We had extra meetings. We'd have to go to City Hall. We went there once, and we had to really sit down and just crunch time, write it all out. So
okay, and so just so that I'm clear, I'm sure it was. You get to learn. I mean, being a journalist, I've covered plenty of meetings, but being in it, in the thick of it, I think is really cool. So you had to convince the city council voted on it. It was non-binding, but you had to convince the council to vote on it?
Yeah.
It
passed unanimously.
Wow,
which I think it helped that the room was packed full. Like the city council, like that room had never been that full for a meeting before. Most people don't come to the city council meetings. So far when I've been there, they've been pretty empty, or people come for a certain topic and once the topic's over they're gone. And so that meeting, it was packed full. There weren't enough seats. We had a lot of youth. We got our friends to come, and they were like lined up around the back, and yeah, it was really cool. And I think that kind of put some pressure on people who are like hesitant to pass it, because it did address like climate change, and that's sometimes a controversial topic, and so some people just didn't want to address that. But the pressure from the community and the fact that it was kids up there addressing them about it, I think got them to pass it. But
in the build up to it, you had to meet with people that had questions, and so the council people, so I think that was
working
awesome.
With city council members and the mayor to write it, I think helped us to pass it, because they knew what would pass and what wouldn't pass. So
now that you're in it, you've gone to 2 meetings. What do you see as your role? So you're at a meeting and the meeting's happening. What are you supposed to be doing when you're sitting up there?
So I've kind of just figured out I need to learn the lingo at this point. Some of like the ordinances, the resolutions, like I was never very aware of them before this position. Which is like, most of them don't really apply to me in my daily life. Like disposing of a house, like
doesn't apply to me either, but
generally affect me. But they're things that I have to know about now, and I'm a non-voting member. So since I'm under 18 and I'm technically not a city council member, I'm a youth advisor. I can vote. I can say yes, no, and they can hear me, but it doesn't count towards whether or not it passes. So, I mean, I've been on the opposite side of some people during it, but it's more like right now I'm in the learning process, and hopefully in the next couple meetings I can start to apply myself a little bit more in the conversation.
And so what do you apply yourself? What do you mean by that?
I'm hoping that there'll be things that I'll have like a strong enough opinion on, or I think will affect the youth in our community, because right now there hasn't been really much. Like disposing of a house won't affect many people. It will definitely affect some people, but like I don't think the youth really care if they sell a house, or if sometimes it's like a lot about like the infrastructure of the city, and I'm like, in the long run that might affect us, but I don't know enough about the infrastructure really to be like, don't do this, don't do that. So I'm hoping things will pop up that I'm able to speak about.
You hope to accomplish by being able to give your opinion, maybe your insight, and really bring in the student's perspective or the youth's perspective.
That's the goal.
Okay. Is there anything, you may not have an idea yet, but is there anything like the environmental bill that you guys passed? Is there any initiatives that you are curious about pursuing this year?
So in our last meeting, we kind of discussed some new things for this coming school year, and I kind of got to the meeting and I was like, okay, I'm not expecting to pass another resolution. Like, that was, I'm not gonna say 1 in a million, but that's not very common. So I was like, let's not walk into this saying, okay, what resolution do we want to pass now? So I think Councilwoman King brought up a good idea about adding youth advisors to other committees and boards in the city. And I know the CRC is interested in adding some sort of youth representative to their council. So I'm hoping that's something we can work on this year and like meet with the different heads of the committees and try and add some more youth representatives from our school into the city. So that'd be really cool.
Okay. I think that's, like you said, you talked about how long and how much work you had to do to be able to get the one resolution passed. So that's probably a pretty tall task, but maybe more representation. I like that idea.
Yeah. And some committees might be like, we don't need that. But some, like I know the CRC is really interested in doing it. Evan Miller, I think, is president of the CRC, and he said he's interested in having a youth advisor on the team. So hoping that can be somewhat accomplished, or it can be accomplished enough that it carries in and can be finished the next year. So
2 more questions I've got. The last one, you were talking about being having more students be on different councils. Why do you think it's important that there is this youth presence on these councils? Why is that something that you believe in?
I find like it's really important because some of these councils, what they do does affect us kids, and also it gives, I feel like the kids are really good, and the adults a really good educational, like I don't know how to explain it, like we can learn from each other. So like we'll have perspectives that maybe the adults won't have, and they'll have things that they'll tell us and that'll teach us, and we'll grow up knowing more. And I feel like it's just like if things affect the youth more than I think people think. And so especially with the environmental resolution, that was really important to us because with all the environmental things happening, we're like, this is our future that's in everyone else's hands, and we're putting it in our hands now. We're taking it. And so I feel like with other committees, it could be things like that. They're like, okay, what you're talking about, that's going to be me as an adult, and I would like to make sure it goes pretty well. Kind of. Just more like in the future type things, and things that could potentially affect us. But it can get kind of tricky depending on the committee. Like I said, most kids aren't very educated on like the infrastructure and the roads and the sidewalks of our city.
But I mean, we got to learn. I mean, how many? I mean, how many adults? I mean,
knew that going into the council.
And I mean, we all get busy, and so there's things that we can and can know and things like that. But I think you're right. It's a double-edged sword. You giving your experiences, but then also an opportunity to learn. Sometimes that we have to create these processes so that for order in our society and stuff like that. So I think that's cool. And okay, so you got 1 more year in high school. What are your plans as you look into the future?
So that's a fun question.
I'm not going to hold you down to it. It's going to be on tape, but I went to 3 colleges, so I mean, just some general ideas. What are you thinking?
Well, I want to go to college. There was a couple months a while ago, and I was just like, I'm not going to college. I can't do it. It's too stressful. But I think I'm going to go to college. Since like 6th grade, I mentioned it earlier, I've always wanted to be a lawyer. And I was like, kind of just dead set in that. And I was like, oh, that's going to change. And so far it hasn't. So I think I'm going to go get my undergrad and basically whatever I feel like, whatever I'm interested in. And then I'm going to go to law school, hopefully. So that'd be really cool. I'm hoping to get into politics. I don't know like how far I'll go, U.S. representative, Senate, president, who knows? Like some cool ideas that have like popped in my head and other people have told me are like, are you interested in coming back to Goshen and being mayor? And I was like, you know what? That's not the worst idea I've ever heard. So I was like, maybe we'll see. But I do see like politics definitely being my future. I find it really interesting.
Well, that's awesome. I just get a feeling that you really care about, your city, about how decisions affect everybody, and you just have a heart for serving others, which is a really cool thing.
I think it's really cool, and I'm a pretty opinionated person, so it's a great path to go on if you have a lot of opinions. That's
cool, but I think you talked about being willing to listen, not to talk too much national, but I think sometimes we talk past each other, and I think that's
definitely.
And it's awesome that you can be an example like that and show that to people.
I definitely learned a lot already from the city council on like how to listen to others and just watching everyone else in the council, how they speak to each other and how they like address one another. I feel like I can learn a lot from that and how I should or shouldn't be addressing other people in like a professional, opinionated setting.
That's cool. That's a cool thing to hear. I think we all could learn a lot from that. All right, thanks Zoe for coming.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to talk to you, and I think we can all feel safe and have a great teen to set an example and show us a great example of what teens are like.
Thank you so much for having me.
And being a teacher, I know that a lot of them are like you, so we're in good hands. Good luck next year, and no matter what you do, I think you're going to be great.
Thank you.
You've got that go-getter spirit, so thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us here on the first episode of The People in Your Neighborhood, and I'd like to thank Zoe again for joining us. Hit the like button if you're watching this on Facebook, hit subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and like the video so that I know that it's something that you find interesting. Comment below. Let's have a conversation. What are some things that you are curious to find out about City Council? What are the things that you think are most important? What do you think the students could learn? What do you think you might be able to learn from students? These are all great things that we could talk about in the comments below. And another thing that you could comment below is tell me somebody that I should talk to. I've got about 4 or 5 people lined up to talk to that I've met over my years here of living in Goshen, but I'd like to know who you think would be somebody interesting to talk to.